Hello. So, this December has been the most difficult one I've had as far as I can remember because a lot of my social issues have been repeating itself over and over again, and it's been really upsetting me very badly. So, it's been triggering emotions that I haven't had since my first semester of college. So, when I went away to college the first time, I didn't know what to expect. And I always have a fear of the unknown, things that I can't control. That always upsets me, makes me scared, and I get very overwhelmed easily. So, the school I chose, which I don't want to mention, was more of a settle as opposed to a dream school. That's also because when I was in high school, I had a hard time, and many of my classmates were either going to Penn State, Temple, Bloomsburg, Westchester. I didn't want to go to those schools, not because they were bad, but because I would see a lot of my classmates that I graduated with. And my high school is probably one of the largest in the state of Pennsylvania. Not going to say what it is. But it kind of left me feeling that I needed to get away as far as possible. So the school I chose was in this small little niche town located near the Lehigh Valley. And at first, everything seemed fine. But a lot of things seemed out of the ordinary. It didn't help the fact that I was on antidepressants. Now, it's not that antidepressants are bad, like I'm on them right now, but they were a different kind which brought on bad mood swings, manic episodes, and everything you could imagine horribly. So, when I first met my roommate, we got along, but the person wasn't very accepting or very welcoming. Now, I did tell him that I have anxiety. I have social anxiety and I get overwhelmed quickly. And I do recall telling him that. Whether or not he took that seriously, I don't know. But at first things were fine. My grades were fine. I was getting along with people and whatnot. But what happened was a lot of my situations started when I went to my first college party. Now, because I was an outcast in high school, I never went to a party. And I always imagined parties being like those teen movies that I love because they're awesome, but because I didn't know what to expect. So I think I had high hopes. But when I went to this party, it was not what it seemed. Now, they went to this place on like the second or third day of school. Technically, school didn't start, but the second or third day that we started, they did ask me, well, technically, my roommate asked me, hey, would you want to go? Now, I said no because I was trying to get used to everything. It would have been very overwhelming. So, fast forward to this time in mid September, I decided, you know what, I want to go. But the problem is that I was expecting a Cinderella moment because I never was invited to a party before. But when we were going to the party, me, my roommate, and the group of people that we talked to, it seemed rather a little shady because I remember walking in, it was above a bar, and there was a couch on its side. It was a dark room, super humid, and it wasn't a good place. So I remember walking in a crowded room, dark lights, disco ball, and everybody crouched together trying to go to the liquor room, which was somebody's kitchen. Now, when I was in that situation, I did tell my roommate that I had anxiety, but for some reason, they all disappeared. And that really upset at me because the one thing I hate the most is being abandoned. So, in that moment, I felt abandoned and I was like, what is going on? I don't want to have to deal with this again. I don't want to have to deal with the same disappointments that I felt in high school. So I left the place and I called my doctor. Now, I was so convinced that I was ditched. And that brought on so much bad anger that I've never had that type of anger before. So I remember going back to the dorm hall and writing a big fuck you on a piece of paper, put it underneath somebody's dorm room. When the group came back, I yelled at the top of my lungs that not only scare them, but it would scare me. And I freaked out saying that I was abandoned. Now, my roommate said, "We didn't abandon you, you just disappeared." Now, the party was canceled because the cops came, but I was so traumatic about that whole thing that I was like, you know what? I can't deal with this. I'm blowing up steam. But then when I woke up the next morning, I had no recollection of what happened. It was almost as if I had a manic episode, which I'm not bipolar, but it felt like that type of situation. So that weekend, I think I went home or had a doctor's appointment, but my roommate kicked me out of the group chat. And that really upset me because it felt like they were ditching me and they were done with me. Or my roommate was, because the other group of people, they were wondering, what happened to you? Why did you freak out? They were confused. So everything seemed fine at first, but then the whole dynamic started changing because everybody started going into their little groups. Now, me, being the socially awkward person that was an outcast in high school, that was a loner, felt rather abandoned. And so I became more emotionally dependent on my roommate without me realizing it. But I also think because of my heightened anxiety, I started doing repetitive behaviors that I normally wouldn't do. So the whole dynamic started changing, and I know one group of people, they were hanging around or whatnot, and I got super upset about it because I felt left out. Then each situation started building and building. That same group of people went over to another dorm hall to get high, and I was upset because I felt left out. So, unfortunately, I walked over to the dorm hall under the guise that, oh, I have a sort of cousin that lives over there. Technically, it's not my cousin, but it's a cousin of a cousin, which that was half truth, half lie, because somebody did live over there, but I did not go over there because of her. I went over there because I felt left out and I was spying on them. Now, that I regret doing, that also set off this huge wave of bad episodes. And then they started calling